I'm Rosemary Hyde, and I have with me here Blanche and Ahmad, and we are going to go over and discuss what are the awarenesses and the gifts that we need to open up to in order to experience peace within our hearts, within our families, and among our friends, and worldwide. What is it that allows peace to happen? It's a change in our awareness, in our will, in our desires. And we can make it happen by pivoting, by changing our minds, by focusing away from things that don't work for it and turning to focus on the predispositions that do bring peace into our minds, our hearts, our families, our communities, and across communities throughout the world. So I'm going to share my screen and look at this article. How can humanity find peace? It's a very interesting sculpture. It looks like the people are created in metal, and they're leveraging up a representation of the world. And we need to focus on peace within to start off. But let's go backwards and start by looking at world peace and then burrow down backwards to find out what brings peace on the small community level, and finally in our own hearts, which is what we need at the beginning. So I'll just read it. World peace is a perfect universal peace, but it's really an aspirational concept. Aspirational just means idealistic, something that we wish for. It's not something that anybody has ever experienced, but we imagine it and we want to experience it. That's what it means to be an aspirational concept or idea. The theory that we can achieve world peace crashes into so much reality that we must address it practically or assume it to be unachievable. In other words, or assume that it's never going to happen. Countless conflicting motives cause endless tension in our global society. People and governments act in self-interest while directly harming others. That ripples out and out, only to return as a new threat to peace. If we are ever to begin on a genuine path to world peace, we must build that masterpiece. That's a pun. The way you spell masterpiece, which is an incredible accomplishment, is with Piece, and the writer is creating double meaning by calling masterpiece Peace. We must build that masterpiece by creating a new vision for a society where the most essential principles of peace are stitched into every facet of our lives, from cradle to grave. When we make the tenets of respect, nonviolence, understanding, and equity the foundation of our classrooms, workplaces, communities, healthcare, justice systems, and families, we will reset our compasses in the direction of an authentic peace. We are at an inflection point, which basically means a place of change. And it is in our own existential interests to reach critical mass, which means it's in everybody's interest to get to a point where enough people are aware of and are working toward world peace. Critical mass means enough people are with us. The time is now for a paradigm shift that will grow a new culture of peace in our hearts, our homes, schools, work, and in our world. First of all, if you have any questions about words in these short paragraphs, will you please enter them into the chat? Just type the word that you don't understand, and I'll give you a minute or two to do that. Or you can just say in the chat, no. So I know I don't need to wait. Tenets usually mean the rules. Where is that word? The tenets, yes, the rules, the requirements of, and that's what I want to go back to discuss, that these four conditions, these four ideas are what we need to have peace every place. Respect. Who can talk about respect? How does respect bring about peace? What does respect mean? When we respect somebody, we are working from the idea that they are honorable, that they are intelligent, and that we can rely on them to be good, to be agents for good. So that's the first condition that we need for creating world peace. We need to respect people, all people, no matter what they look like, no matter what they sound like. Tasmia, hello. Good to see you, Tasmia.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice to see you too.
We just read this paragraph that's on the screen. And the third little paragraph, the tenets, the requirements of world peace are these four things. And the first one is respect, which means that we give the benefit of the doubt, is a good expression. We make an assumption because we know that people, no matter what they look like, no matter what they sound like, no matter how they dress, no matter where they live, people, we're all one. People can suffer from the same things. And we all need the same things. So first, when we first give people that assumption, we honor that in them, that no matter where they are, no matter who they are, no matter how old or young or how poor or rich or how whatever they are, we all need to be loved. We all need to be appreciated. We all suffer loss. We can all feel pain. And we all need others to hold us, to affirm us, to think well of us. And when we don't have that, we all suffer. So we need respect, means that we automatically assume that every other human being in the world is somebody we can respect. And we actually do respect them. Does that always happen, that everybody respects everybody else?
No, ma'am, I don't think so that always happens and everybody respects all time, everybody others.
Yeah, we can all work on that. Because we humans, one of the things that we do a lot, that our brain is wired for, is judging. And it's something that we like to do. And so we tend, unless we tell ourselves, okay, I need to remember that everybody is one with everybody else, we tend to say, oh, she's too stupid, he's too angry. That word too, T-O-O, is a very powerful and negative word. So respect means we are not judging. We are turning away from judging. We are assuming respect and honor, that everybody needs it, everybody recognizes it, and everybody is capable of it. And sometimes that seems difficult, but that's an absolute truth, that humans, no matter where they are, no matter who they are, need to be respected and honored, and are able to do that with other people, can learn how to do that. So respect. The second one is nonviolence. Nonviolence usually is expressed in terms of codes of conduct. It's things that we might do, but we need to recognize that they are acts of violence. Anybody, in language, there's a lot of possible little acts of violence. Like, for instance, if you learn somebody's name and you learn that that's not the name they want to use, that they have chosen to call themselves a different name, it's nonviolent to use the name that they tell you they want to use. And it's a little bit of violence to not honor their wishes. And that one's an easy one, but it's happened to me several times in my life that people I grew up calling one name, decided 30 years into their life or 50 years into their life, oh, I don't want to be called that anymore. Well, usually it's a childhood nickname that they want to give up. Or it could be a whole name. I've had that happen too. And it's really hard to feel comfortable calling people you know really well by one name a different name. It's really hard. Is that something that you've experienced?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not for myself, but with others, with this new thing with the LBG and pronouns.
Yes, pronouns. Yes.
And my daughter was expressing as an educator. I mean, they will go to the higher ups and everything and disrespect it. And she said it's just so hard to just getting, I don't want to say in a habit, and it's not being disrespectful, but it's accepted as very disrespectful.
Right. And that's another thing that's really challenging.
Yes.
So how you address another person, for instance, is a simple example of being nonviolent, of using the language that the other person expresses their desire for in referencing them. When somebody is, again, when you've known somebody as a person of one gender, and then they grow up and they say, oh, I don't want to use that gender anymore because it's not true. We have that with my grandson, who has gone back and forth about being he or she for years. And it's a really interesting exercise in nonviolence to verify that, okay, you're, who we're talking to you as we're talking about you, what's the word that you want now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Also, language that talks about all people in a certain category, which is an artificial concept. Nothing applies to everybody, ever. But when you make assumptions based on, say, gender, and say that, oh yeah, so and so is hysterical, which is a word that's only used with women. That's a prejudicial term. So bias and prejudice give us a lot of challenges in terms of using nonviolent language. Tasmia, does this ring a bell with you at all?
Yes, ma'am, that happens to me. I remember that someone called me fatty because of my obesity. I am a little bit fat, that's why. So I heard it because decreasing obesity is a really, I have to work really, really hard, and it doesn't happen in one day. So
Right.
It hurts.
Yeah. So that's that's one of the tenets, one of the requirements for world peace, is that we have by and large learned as people that we need to maintain nonviolence in our language and in our actions. And especially, it's really challenging, I think, more with language. Although, again, in relationships between people of different genders, there are societal assumptions, for instance, about men and women. And, there's been a huge culture shift going on about that. 50, 60 years ago, men were much freer to pretend or to act out sexual terms regarding women then. And women have now stood up and said, hey, don't do that. We don't like it. And peace means, okay, we need to take people at their word when they say that, in terms of how you address them, they have the right to say that. And that's a pretty new concept in the world. It's a worldwide shift that personally I'm happy for, being a woman. But the guys find it really difficult, and they don't see the reason because they're not women. So, it's the whole thing about privilege and becoming much more aware that nobody is rightfully privileged above anybody else. And that's where the equity comes in. I'm skipping understanding for the moment. Equity means everybody deserves to be treated with respect and with nonviolence and understanding. That those are requirements for everybody and for interacting with everybody. And it's a new standard in most parts of the world, in most cultures. It's a new raised bar for behavior, especially about how men behave and how parents behave to their kids. 50, 60 years ago, kids weren't considered people, at least in our culture. You could do whatever violence you wanted against kids. But now, consciousness, awareness has evolved, and, we've become very aware that, hey, wait a minute, children are people. And to be peaceful, to be behaving peacefully, we need to treat them as people. We need to listen to them. We need to respect them. We need to treat them, with respect. We can't just be violent to them. We can't call them names. We can't hit them any more than we can anybody else. They're people. So part of what's challenging about this is that this has always been true, but we're becoming more aware of it. And therefore, we have to change what we expect of ourselves. And it is challenging. But that's the way to greater peace. Understanding goes in with respect and nonviolence and equity, in that it's saying we need to make the effort to understand what the other person needs and when they're suffering, and how to fulfill their needs so that we are affirming them. That whole idea of affirming other people is a pretty new concept. So this is demanding to become peacemakers.
Babies are still being beaten by their parents in Bangladesh.
Yep.
That's sad.
Yes, it is. Because we now know that, when you are treated violently as a small child, we now know scientifically what that trauma does to young people and how they spend the rest of their lives trying to get out of the consequences of it. It's an act of war. So humans in general, many humans, are becoming more aware of peacefulness versus war. And it needs to happen more than it has yet in order to bring greater peace to the world. Okay, wow, thank you for sharing that, Tasmia, about the babies being beaten by the
in bed.
Yeah. And I hope that that awareness that is based in science, is based in psychology, that knowledge will permeate Bangladesh and other countries where it hasn't yet arrived, because that's what's happening really in the world, is that as people get educated, as we learn more beyond our own little townships and our own little family, extended family, we become aware of these new ideas, which by and large are opening up the possibility of greater peacefulness. The history of the world, the history of humankind, has steadily, slowly, but steadily moved from war and the possibilities of war to greater and greater peace. If you think about, thinking about tribal societies, everybody's at war with everybody, often. And when people get more education, they move beyond the thought that, I've got to fight for my tribe, my neighborhood, my family, because your family has basically the same needs that my family does. And if we cooperate, we'll get there faster. What fighting does is it slows down the satisfaction of a good life. It keeps everybody at war, and war is destructive.
Yes, ma'am, I agree with you. I agree with you, ma'am.
So, if you study the curve of social developments over the centuries, as as institutions, for example, rules became governments, became more important than families. The war has still happened. It's been worse in many ways because it's been bigger. But it doesn't solve anything either. You know, if you've got countries fighting between themselves, that's no better than families fighting, because you're destroying. Whenever you're fighting, you're destroying. And that's taken humanity a long time to really learn. We're not quick learners, unfortunately.
No.
But we do learn.
Mm-hmm.
And Ahmad, the word inflection, it generally means where you put emphasis. So if you, like in a word, if I'm going to change the inflection of
Doesn't matter.
Huh?
The
Thanks, ma'am.
emphasis.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I said I'm giving you time. Okay, think. I didn't get this word.
Yeah.
Inflection.
Right. So I'm trying to think of an example. It means where you put the accent.
Where you put the accent or emphasis on something.
Yeah. So it's not in the text.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. It's not about words in the text. It's about, you know, what do you emphasize as being socially important? And what the sentence is saying is that we're at a new point of shifting priorities and shifting awareness, so that instead of promoting parents as absolute authorities, for instance, over young children, we've now reached, or are reaching in parts of the world, a point where we realize that, you know, we are equal to children. We still need to guide them, but we can't brutalize them because they're human like us. And the evolution of awareness is always toward greater and greater and greater partnership, collaboration, oneness. So as peace becomes more possible, it's because of evolving awareness and changing social values.
There's an example that's going on in the second generation of my nieces and nephews.
Okay.
And for the people who don't know, my oldest daughter, Shani, and we were discussing that because we are having more and more interracial marriages and couples in my family.
We are in my family too.
Yes. And when I was talking to my daughter, it bothered her because she has two daughters and both of them are attracted to Caucasians and have no attraction to African Americans. And she's like, wow, because she had already made that observation with cousins, second generation cousins. It was like, wow. And now it's in her home.
Right.
And it's not so much as that she wants them to love who they love. what she doesn't want to give up is to distinguish in the skin tone.
Mm-hmm.
She very much, she's like, wow. She's like, well, these are the only grandchildren, and her husband's family are very dark skinned. I come from mixed because my mother's mixed. She's half Caucasian, she's half Irish. But we didn't celebrate that because she didn't want us to.
Yeah.
So this is what I told her. I said, when I look at COVID and what nature's doing, with weeding some of us out because all around the world we're nasty and polluting this world. I said, and Mother Nature can take care of itself. And I believe in a conscious, I don't know people's religion and beliefs, but for me, I believe in a greater conscious and vibration of consciousness. I said, all around the world and the way things are changing, I said, I think Mother Nature is going to make us like this monogamous color.
Yep.
Because
it's definitely happening.
From a generation to where that was unthought of. It was punished. It didn't happen. Then the laws changed. Then it was hard. And this new generation is like, you love who you love. There's a mixing of races. I told her, I said, and peace isn't going to come until everyone can look at each other and say, we're the same.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And that really is happening.
Yes.
And the other thing that has happened before, but is really accelerating, is a blending of religions in the same families.
Yes. Because religions are coming together and saying there's only one universal truth, which is God. And not the different deities. And they're coming under this big umbrella of one universal truth of God. And when you put those two together, and that's why I believe about that higher vibration of consciousness that we have no control over, and we don't realize it's happening.
Yeah, and it is happening very fast.
Yes, I love it.
I love it too. It's truth. It's, you know, it's what needs to happen to create peace. So yes, yes, physically, in the physical dimension, nature is making this happen also.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So it's really interesting because we're kind of, you know, not necessarily all of us as individuals, but humanity at this point is at an inflection point, a shifting emphasis point, where biology and you know, earth science are just happening, are evolving toward oneness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's exciting.
It is. I even told my sister, you know, I said, well, I told my sister, I said, see, even your God in heaven has said, oh my goodness, I gave them too many choices and colors. It's just too much for them to deal with. I don't know what I was thinking. Let me balance this thing out, and and maybe they can get the fact that they're all human, they're all one.
Well, yep. So, you know, peace will happen.
It will.
Because all of the other things are happening that are leading us in that direction.
Yes.
But the faster the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think we have to look, like I said, the changes in the generation. I love the generation I was born in to see how conscious change, people change, laws has changed, acceptance change. And at one time when I had no hope, and when I see this new generation of peacemakers and these young people accepting and love whoever you love, and there's no backlash to that, and how faith and spirituality and religion are all coming together in a more peaceful way. And even with that, accepting people to believe how they believe and whatever they believe, it's like, do what you need to do to get through life, you know?
Yep.
And it's happened.
Yeah.
The change is there if we want to see it.
Yep.
And it's the old heads like me who go back and forth fighting with it. I'm not fighting against it, but when I see the negative, I focus on it rather than looking at what's coming and what's happening.
Mm-hmm. And that's human nature too.
And that's human nature too. Yeah. But at least I recognize and I'm aware, but right. I still stand for the negativity that's still there.
Yep. Okay, so this has been a very interesting discussion. I thank everyone who has been here and shared it. We will continue it and talk about, now that we've really examined what it is on a world level that is required for making peace. I think that kind of gives us a guideline for looking at peace in our families and peace in our own hearts, which we will talk about on Friday.